so if you remember, right, in Go, right, for example, you always treat the errors the same as you treat values, right? So, you're like, call some fn, and every fn either yields an error or the result. That's a beautiful pattern. It's a verbose pattern, but it's beautiful. JavaScript exception handling, it's terrible, right? I've been writing JavaScript for 20 years, and I still hate it. Because you can just be like, try, a bunch of code here, right? Of code here. And then if it fails, who cares, right? I mean, we're going to get that thing in here, right? So it's not the pattern that necessarily that's bad. It is the mindset that it creates, right? Because you are calling here 15 functions or 3, f and 1, f and 2, and you don't really care, right? And this way of controlling errors is very difficult, right? Because what if these two things, what if this one failed, right? You're just like, now I have to come here and say, if f1 has failed, right? Well, do this, right? So you have to do these crazy if statements. You have to have your functions return meaningful reason errors or types so you can figure it out. Isn't it nicer if you, instead of doing this, you say, well, you know what? I'm going to treat my errors as first-class citizens. So here I'm going to say, whatever, var data error, right? And again, you have to, if you build the system nicely, so this can be f and 1 error. It can be f and 1 data, right? And you get the point. Then you do the same. You can see this is verbose, yes? But verbose doesn't mean bad, right? It just means that you care, right? So if you have to trade convenience for verbosity, I would always trade it for this type of verbosity because, yes, it's a little bit annoying, but you're thinking about your errors constantly. The language itself, the pattern itself is telling you, hey, dude, errors are not something irrelevant. Errors are critical to your system. Think about them as in no lesser value than your actual values that your function might yield. Versus, again, let's just wrap everything in a try-catch. Who cares, right? I mean, if it fails, we're just gonna print it. That kind of sucks, right? So, and you don't actually have to use try and catch. So this is more, Leo, to your about you don't have to use it. You can write. The problem with people who are absolutists is that some people think that you must write the code in this language, this or that way. You don't have to, man. You can write this part of code in JavaScript like you would do in Golang, right? And that is the beautiful part of JavaScript and a terrible part of JavaScript at the same time, is that it's a very loose language. You can write it as you would write C#. You can use Lambda.js and Lodash and write it like how you would write Haskell, right? You can use class keywords and write it, as I said, like C# or C++. But the beauty of it, if you know some of these languages, you can pick the nice things from them. You can use recursion if you want. You never have to use a for loop again. You can just, okay, let me write Haskell.js, right? So the point is, you can embrace this pattern and just say, with my team, I'm going to treat errors as the Go does it. You can do that, of course, right? And it heavily depends, of course, then how, to the previous discussion, how do you wrap your, let's say, HTTP library, or really any service library, any external service that you're calling. You're going to kind of maybe internalize this to the functions, to the services, to whatever patterns you're using, right? But yeah, I try to avoid, and I can show you, for example, let's take a look at the Programming Network API. I'll show you some examples of exactly putting my money where my mouth is, right? So if we take a look at, for example, upload avatar, right? If you take a look at this logic here, this came to my mind, right? You can see my upload avatar logic pretty much here, right? So uploading a file to external service, in our case Cloudflare, many things can fail, right? Here we have handle image upload. And you can see handle image upload either returns an error or an image, right? If we go in here, we have buffer, parse image. The parse image returns a buffer or an error. Okay, cool. Is valid image returns is valid or invalid image error. So you can see exactly what I'm telling you now, right? Every function, every method we have here either returns some results or an error. I have a try catch here, just in case there's something that I didn't cover. Actually, there isn't. I did cover everything, but it's just because we are in a land of JavaScript, we have access to this utility. It would be silly not to put it in a try catch. But you can see each one of these methods actually yield one or the other, right? Because now you can see, right, if it fails here, I don't need to scroll down and do so. Every single function itself now has this. And if we go to the decorators here in the API, if we take a look at parse image, this is what a parse image does. Parse image itself has a try catch, and parse image handles its own error, right? So that we of course have to use try catch on the micro level because there's no other way in JavaScript to do it. But you can see here, we try to parse the image, we get the buffer, for example. If everything's fine, we do this, and then we construct, right? So that's basically exception handling versus just treating the errors as a first-class citizens. I would highly advise, whenever you can, to do this. I think it's amazing.